So Jeff, you mentioned the potential crossover appeal, if you will, between wrestling and MMA. And it's funny that you say that because we've got a quote from the CEO of TNT Sports when they were on the Varsity podcast. And Lewis said this: AEW is not combat sports. It's sort of a hybrid between entertainment and sports. So we don't consider that 100% sports. So combat sports like UFC, which is a fantastic property, has perked our interest. Now, this, of course, is the talk right now because it wasn't that long ago. And I think over the weekend, we actually had some reports out that said, hey, UFC buys are down and ESPN is not happy and UFC is not happy. And UFC's made it clear inside the tent, so to speak, that they want to be on Netflix, which makes sense considering a WWE potential crossover. I mean, UFC and WWE both owned by TKO. I get it. But the buys aren't really there and they're down. So it does feel like the UFC may be facing a crossroads where they need to reinvent themselves. Now, they've done this a few times before. When they first started the Ultimate Fighter television show, later when they did the deal with ESPN Plus, and of course they even had a Fox stint. So now what's next for them? This is a real question mark because if you'll recall, WWE helped build the Ultimate Fighter. The Ultimate Fighter then goes to Fox. When UFC leaves Fox, here comes WWE. So they've just sort of chased each other all over, the map as far as content and the different distribution platforms. But now when you've got the CEO of TNT Sports saying, maybe that's perked our interest. Wouldn't that be interesting if you had a TKO property and AEW both under the Time Warner umbrella? You're muted, pal. Jeff, you with us?
Oh boy, hold on.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Can you?
Yes, sir. You're back. Do you have any thoughts?
I do, of course I do. You'll come up with a better little slogan than I win, but whoa, strange bedfellows. I don't know about that, but it's a different audience. I will say that, and for so many years, and you can kind of look at the growth through the years that the quote there says a lot. Dave Silva, can you pull that back up? Because I think it says a lot. Yes, it's not combat sports. It's a hybrid between entertainment and sports. Absolutely. And I think the selling of sponsorship has to go down the lane. No, it's not sport. It's entertainment. We're over in that world. Look at the demos, that world, sell it as such. The product integration that you can do. It's like you can't really ask a quarterback or a point guard to integrate product, but you can on a comedy or a variety or a sitcom or whatever it may be. But man, wouldn't that be interesting if UFC split up? Because you look at WWE. Yes, they're on Netflix, but they're also in the Peacock family and the CW family. When you kind of step back, yes, Netflix has got all the sexy news as of late, but when you really take a step back and look at the WWE model, they got their toes in the water everywhere. Curious to see if UFC were to take that strategy.
It'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think eventually everything will be with Netflix with WWE? Do you think that would be a goal of theirs?
No.
I don't know.
I think the Peacock deal winds up getting renewed.
Bigger and better. I agree.
I mean, I don't know if you've seen, nobody's talking about this out loud because wrestling fans just got excited about it. But I think they're being kind of smart about it. WWE, I mean, because these Tom, Dick, and Harry investors at these different, I'm saying outside the tent, non-wrestling people, what they're all trained and conditioned to know is that wrestling is, for lack of a better word, WWE. And so we've always sort of known that, but I think this is the time where it's really going to come in handy for WWE. Let me give you an example. we've talked about the brand before. It's not a tissue. It's not a Kleenex. It's a tissue. It's not a Coke. It's a soda, that sort of thing. But they've just become, it's not a bandage. I mean, it's not a Band-Aid. It's a bandage. But WWE has become so interchangeable that I think the people who are negotiating right now with WWE think that wrestling and WWE are interchangeable. So by WWE promising, oh yeah, you're going to have all the WWE content, what they're not saying maybe is the WCW content, because all of a sudden WCW, which used to just be behind the paywall on with Peacock, and then before that the WWE Network, now all of a sudden it's on YouTube. I think the highest and best use for all of that old archive stuff that's not really moving the needle, we'll call it the territory stuff, is on YouTube. Why wouldn't WWE let the global free market sort of dictate, hey, I don't know what value this has. We'll just throw it up rather than keeping it on the shelf and get paid for it, because the people who were paying us big money for WWE content don't value this or even know what the hell it is.
Mm-hmm. Times are a changing, pal. Times are. I can tell by the grin on your face. We're thinking the same thing.
Let's talk about the Torch back in 2005. There's some talk in TNA that Terry Taylor may be up for the VP of Talent Relations job in WWE. Should the slot be vacated by Laurinaitis, since Taylor has worked behind the scenes in WWE and has a good rep? Taylor continues to work in the production truck during TV tapings and pay-per-views and spends time with the wrestlers in the locker room earlier in the day in the role of an agent. At this point, I think Johnny Ace had been in this role for like less than a year. And JR had been, I mean, it's been said that he had trained him as a replacement. I don't know how real that is, but I do find it interesting that once again, Terry Taylor finds himself being quoted in the Torch, or not quoted in the Torch, but there's a story about Terry Taylor in the Torch. Did you think at any point he was really going to replace Johnny Ace and become the head of talent relations? That's just kind of hard to imagine.
Yeah, you talk about wrestling bubble, if you will, and all that. During this time in my career, Conrad, there was so much going on in my life, personally and professionally. I really didn't give that a second thought. I'm not even qualified to give an answer that, I don't recall me ever thinking that, oh no, Terry or anybody, they're going to go back in the office job, because we were, again, running on a shoestring budget. Now, Bob Ryder was, there were some key individuals that just were, but look, at any one time, and again, growing up in this business, you understand nobody's irreplaceable, certainly in the office. It's just not the reality of it.
Let's talk about Walt Wilson. It's written here, the company's vice president of marketing also quit this past week. I'll admit, I am not familiar with that name. What can you tell us about Walt?
I was about to ask you, Conrad, have you ever even heard the name Walt Wilson? My guess would be no, because he was short-lived. And look, as we begin to grow, kind of, again, hindsight's 2020. There became a point during this time frame, there was some pressure because Dixie's background was PR and marketing, mainly PR, and fantastic at that in the music business, and had a hell of a Rolodex and a client list. But the marketing side of it, and to market professional wrestling, it is a unique skill set. And I have seen, man, especially when I went back to WWE, I'll recall a meeting, in a live event meeting, and I think we were either taking a break or we were waiting on somebody to show up. And so we had some time to kill, and there was, I don't know, 4 or 5 of us in this meeting, but we were waiting on another 4 or 5. And we were into the conversation, and we're talking about, this guy used to work in the live event department, this guy. And then there was a little discussion. Oh, no, they were in marketing. And then the guy goes, do you know how many marketing folks, head of marketing folks, or VPs or SVPs we've had in marketing? It's just like the massive amount of turnover. And so we got in that discussion. And then as I kind of look at it, and back on my TNA days, Walt was a great dude. Very nice guy. Comes from the music business, didn't understand wrestling. He was game, set, match before he walked in the door, just because you got to have a real, not just a passion. You've got to understand the nuts and bolts of the industry in that, if you're in that marketing role, because a lot of folks come in and think, oh yeah, I've got a Rolodex, I can sell, I can do this. But if you can't wrap your head around the product and know, not speak from your head, but speak from your heart about this, you are, I mean, swimming upstream. You're never going to close a deal, because you're just not. And I'm not talking about just sponsorship. I'm talking about closing a deal internally, because marketing has to take what creative presents them and then create a message with it. And you just got to know the industry. And so again, Walt, nice guy, but he wasn't around long, and he was a Dixie hire from the music business.